Thank you, Bob.
Hi, I'm Bob Weir with another interview of people in the news in North Texas. My guest today is Texas State Representative Tan Parker, representing District 63 in Denton County. A businessman and lifelong Republican, Parker has drafted some of the most significant legislation in the Lone Star State. Among his many accomplishments is the drafting of legislation that deals with protection for women and children against human traffickers, and his legislative efforts to protect children from sexual abuse and neglect, such as Jenna's Law. Thank you, Representative Parker, for taking the time to do this interview.
Well, Bob, thank you. It's always a privilege to be with you, and I so appreciate all you do for our community and putting these things together. So thank you for the time together here this afternoon.
All right, if you would, Representative Parker, please begin by telling our viewers about a recent book you created and edited entitled Making Government Work. And here's the book here, a very interesting collection of essays from very well-known people. So if you would, tell us a little bit about that.
No, absolutely. I appreciate that opportunity, and thank you for your lead in talking about the work I've done to end human trafficking and to work to stop sexual abuse as well. Appreciate that very much. We, of course, have been working on those issues for a number of years and will continue to do so this next session. I'll continue to have bills in my own package that work to eradicate human trafficking. And also, just to share with you all briefly, and I'll answer the question about the book, Jenna's Law is now in the news now currently as well. And the reason is that I passed that bill back in 2009 and named it Jenna's Law after a young, incredibly courageous survivor by the name of Jenna Quinn from Denton County. It all started right here in our area. And that bill now, Bob, is in 20 some odd states across the country. And then earlier this year, U.S. Senator John Cornyn now has passed it in the U.S. Senate. And now it's being held up specifically by Nancy Pelosi and Representative Bobby Scott, who chairs the relevant committee, a gentleman from Virginia. So there was actually just an article, the editorial page of the Dallas Morning News on Sunday was talking about how terrible it is that our U.S. Congress can't get off the dime. These Democrats won't move to do the right thing to protect our children from abuse and neglect. So, and I want to stress that it's a bipartisan effort. And the Senate was passed not just by U.S. Senator John Cornyn, by Democrat U.S. Senator Maggie Hassan from New Hampshire, who's doing a great job. And also in the U.S. House, we've got a Democrat sponsor, Congresswoman Wild, as well as Congressman McCall, so a Republican and a Democrat. So it's just a shame that these kind of games are being played by some Democrats. And I just want everybody in the viewing audience to be praying for that. So thank you for that opportunity to share that with folks, Bob. But with regard to the book, Making Government Work, what a tremendous privilege for me to put forth this incredible blueprint for the country. It's a long story, Bob, but it really goes back for me. I was mentored as a young man at 19 by the gentleman that did the first Making Government Work, Tex Lazar, who was the Assistant Attorney General of the United States under President Reagan. And it sadly, tragically, his life ended much too soon, and the Lord called him home at the age of 55. But I've maintained this incredible relationship all these years with his wonderful wife, Mary Spaeth, who is the Kellyanne Conway of the Reagan era. And she came to me and said, Tan, will you pick up Texas mantle, so to speak, and create a 2020 version of Making Government Work for the good of the country? And so what an honor and privilege for me, Bob. I said yes to that. It was an amazing journey for 20 months to put it all together and to reach out to people like Rick Perry and Chuck Norris and Rick Santorum and Art Laffer and Nikki Haley and so many others to put together a blueprint for the country and how we need to move forward. So I'll just share that with you briefly, but it's been a real privilege to roll it out for the country the last few weeks.
Yes, you wrote a healthcare chapter in the book about the 2020 Healthcare Choices Plan for the nation. It's the conservative response to Obamacare. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Bob, absolutely. Thank you for the question. So basically in the healthcare chapter within Making Government Work, the chapter was actually written specifically by the former U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania, Rick Santorum. and also Grace Marie Turner, who's the president of the Galen Institute. Together, they're really the two top thinkers about how we move beyond Obamacare and really provide a conservative approach and a conservative solution. So Senator Santorum has provided a lot of guidance in an unofficial capacity to President Trump on these matters the last several years. But basically what the chapter is it talks about how we got to where we are with healthcare, the history before Obamacare, all of the challenges that Obamacare has created in terms of access, in terms of affordability, in terms of quality of care, and these ridiculous prices that people are paying for premiums nowadays. And so in the MGW chapter, this chapter I'm referring to, it specifically lays out a real plan for how we improve these things. How do we maintain quality, but at the same time reduce the costs for everyone that's in the system? How do we expand access? How do we address the needs of the chronically ill and those people with pre-existing conditions? So our plan addresses all those things. And it specifically, what it does, Bob, is it goes and looks at those populations that have a higher, if you will, medical expense from an underwriting perspective, and it isolates those pools. It's one of the things we can do, isolates those pools from the rest of society that has less health expense. We take care of those folks beautifully, like my own wife who has a pre-existing condition, but in separating them from the pool as a whole, through some creativity that the states are currently allowed, we're able to reduce the overall cost while at the same time extending access and at the same time, if not maintaining, improving quality. We all know about how many doctors today are leaving the system because the payments from these governmental structures have not been adequate. So I know how many of the folks listening today have lost doctors to that reason. And so this is redirecting those same dollars more intelligently, more efficiently, with some of the creativity that is due to the states. And that type of plan is really elaborated in great detail in the chapter in Making Government Work. So I would really encourage everyone to get out there and read it and learn more about it.
Yeah, it is an excellent read.
Thank you.
The former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, wrote about this book, Making Government Work. He said, that book is for state government what the Contract for America was for the federal government. What did he mean by that?
Well, I mean, Bob, my goodness, what a tremendous honor and privilege for me, for Newt Gingrich himself to give me such an incredible compliment for the book I've been blessed to put together and create with so many powerful voices across America, experts in all these various areas, 23 areas of public policy. And really what he's getting at is that the original contract with America in 1994 was a blueprint for how to move the nation at the federal level forward. And it focused on specific plans to do so. Well, that's really what he's referring to here, Bob, is that Making Government Work is a very specific layout of plans, chapter by chapter, on all the policy areas. So how we improve and strengthen the family, how do we address tax policy, how do we address tort reform, how do we address the environment, how do we address energy, how do we address all of these major topics, the issue of life, how do we address how we heal our inner cities, all of these issues, how do we address the issues around private sector infrastructure, how do we work with the private sector, I should say, to improve our infrastructure. I mean, all these various policy topics of today, people will find in the book, Making Government Work. And I want to stress, Bob, you know this because you've read the book, it sounds like, but all of the author royalties that I will be receiving are all being donated 100% to charity. This is just my way of giving back and to be able to put something forward that will help the country, I pray, for years to come. But the vast majority of all of the resources that are raised from book sales, the author royalties, are going to veterans charities in particular, just to kind of give you and everybody listening a little bit of background.
Right, and I meant to mention that also because I'm very aware of that. It does go to veterans groups. Let me go on to, it's been about a full year since I've interviewed you at my home office, and that was before the world was hit with COVID-19. Can you give us a brief account of what you've been involved with this year?
Absolutely, Bob. Thank you for that. It's hard to believe it's been a year since I was there in your home office and and did the last interview face to face. Boy, I miss those days. I know everyone listening misses those days, and we look forward to rounding the corner and this vaccine making a real difference to get our lives back to normal. But look, this year has been, when we came into session, came into the new year in 2020, like everybody, I had great expectations for lots of wonderful things. Our economy was the best in all of America. Texas was doing extraordinarily well because of the fact that we've made good decisions as lawmakers and our executive leadership of the state for many, many years. But we came into a situation, obviously, as we got into late February and the beginning of March, where everything stopped and the world was turned upside down, as you said earlier. And basically, from my perspective and my colleagues that are fellow public servants, it was time for us to swing into action in a different way, to get involved with regard to emergency response. That consumed so much of our time those early months. I mean, Bob, we went from 3.5% unemployment rate in Texas in January to 13.5% at the peak of COVID in the spring. So that incredible increase just tragically caused tremendous difficulty. Our system, our Texas Workforce Commission and unemployment structure was never established to serve that many Texans. And so it was an incredibly difficult time. Many of my staff members were augmenting, working above and beyond normal hours to help Texans on the front lines by handling those claims for workers' compensation. We were literally taking all of these folks calling our offices and really holding their hand through the process of getting them in the system, getting them verified, trying to expedite those things and many times they were calling for days on end, weeks on end without getting through. And it was just because the system was so overloaded. Then we had situations, Bob, where, we had people, citizens of our district that were trapped literally in countries around the world. We had families that were adopting babies in various places, all kinds of things. And we'd be working with our great Congressman Burgess and his team. We'd be working locally with regard to getting test kits here. We were working to get more PPE to all of our hospitals and nursing homes and assisted living, working so closely with our wonderful county judge, Andy Eads, and the Commissioner's Court, our great State Senator Jane Nelson, my fellow colleague in this part of Denton County, and I, Lynn Stuckey, we're doing a tremendous amount with the Denton County State School to take care of that very, very vulnerable population and talk about, do we not have enough ambulances on site in the event we got to take people in large quantities to the hospitals? What's the plan with the hospitals? We would be talking to all of our emergency response that we didn't have enough testing. So I'd be visiting with our state folks to get us new testing capabilities up here, often that were staffed by our state guard. And so we had all those kind of things going on. And then we had the process of cutting regulation, a lot of regulatory red tape that was unnecessary. All of our school districts, be it the Louisville ISD or the Denton ISD or the Northwest ISD, any of the ones that I'm blessed to represent, they all were providing free lunches to children that didn't otherwise have a meal during the peak of COVID.
Amazing.
And so there was a lot of red tape that we had to cut through with the USDA to make certain that we were doing that properly, and there was some reimbursement there. But it's just the outpouring of love and generosity from all aspects of our folks that are elected at every level of government, our chambers of commerce, our wonderful people working hand in hand like mission moms to feed these precious babies. I mean, it was an extraordinary all hands on deck effort. And it truly, Bob, was 24 hours a day in those early months, just helping constituents with all of these needs. And then we had issues, as you know, in the grocery stores, Bob. You go to the grocery stores and there was not any meat. There was no paper products. And then we had a situation where our restaurant supply chain was backing up. Things were spoiling because the restaurants were only allowed to do to-go or takeout orders. And so one of the things that I worked on over the course of a week very intensely to get done was to cut that red tape that allowed restaurants to be able to sell retail food items to go. So not just prepared items, but raw items, raw meat, raw vegetables, paper products. And it helped to relieve the strain on the grocery store chain, supply chain, but it also provided additional revenues for some of our restaurants across Texas that had the ability to help keep the lights on a little bit longer, to pay a couple more employees, and to make it all work in that very dark time that we were all experiencing. So I just share that with you briefly to let you know it was all about serving people. It was about helping our constituents. And that's the blocking and tackling of being a state rep, Bob, that when you're doing those things, those are not things I post on social media, but that's the hour-to-hour, day-to-day stuff that I was involved with during this very, very difficult year. And, you know, beyond that, of course, I've been very focused on a partisan side with holding Texas, maintaining our Republican majority in the Texas House. I also spent an extraordinary amount of time doing, raising money, resources, campaigning to keep Texas, Texas. And so I'm very proud of that. And by God's grace, we were blessed to keep Texas and our Republican majority intact. And so that was a great privilege. And that coupled with making government work made it a busy year, Bob, to say the least.
Well, I just want to say that, you know, we feel very comforted in this area, in this county, in this area, because of the, and you know, and I don't just say this, you know, frivolously, but because when I know the people in office like yourself, and I know we have some good people. You mentioned Senator Nelson and Andy.
Absolutely.
And there's so many others, that it is comforting to be in this Texas county where we feel that you guys are handling things in an honest, fair way with our interests in mind. So I just have to say that we really thank you for your service, all of you.
Well, thank you, Bob. It's such a blessing and a privilege to serve, and we have so many extraordinary public servants I'm blessed to work with every day. So thank you, sir.
Well, Representative Parker, I think it's, I'm going to close. We've been at it now for about 20 minutes. So is there anything else you'd like to add before we end?
Well, look, I just appreciate the opportunity, Bob, to educate people on what's taking place, what we're doing. I want everybody that's watching this video to know that my door is always open. I'm here to serve. That's the heart and soul of what I do as a representative every day, is to serve our constituents and be responsive to their needs. And look, I want to also leave something positive. I do believe that Texas will rebound and will be the first state to fully rebound economically in every way, just like we led the country in the 2008 downturn, because we live within our means. We will live within our means, and we will do a great job of bouncing back collectively because of all the hard work of our entrepreneurs, our business people, our teachers, our administrators, all the folks in the front lines, all of our amazing healthcare workers that have put their lives on the line, the doctors and the nurses and the EMTs, the police and the firemen that have made such a difference taking care of everybody. And I just want everybody to know that we are close, I believe, to rebounding and to turning this corner now with the great news literally today that these vaccines are being approved very rapidly here in the US. We're going to have access to them here in Texas, and it will make a huge difference. So I just want to thank you, Bob, for giving me the opportunity and the privilege and honor of representing Texas. And please know my door is always open. I wish you and Annette and your family a wonderfully blessed Christmas, along with everybody listening.
Okay, and we thank you for that. And we're all praying every day that this COVID-19 pandemic will soon be in the rearview mirror.
Amen.
It'll just be one of those very tough eras in history. I want to thank you, Representative Parker, again for all the work you do to protect Texas values in our state. I wish you, your lovely wife Beth, and your marvelous family a Merry Christmas.
Bob, thank you so much. Again, appreciate it very much. And folks want to learn more about Making Government Work, it's just makinggovernmentwork.com. And of course, follow me on social media. Reach out to my office locally or in the Capitol. God bless. Thanks again, Bob.
God bless you too. Thank you.